Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. The Canadians get a big win over the Colorado Avalanche, or should I say the Quebec Nordiques. Either way, it's a big 7-3 win for the Canadians, and they get exactly the kind of revenge that I was looking for in this game. Obviously we lost by 7 or whatever it was like 7-2 when we played against them only a few months ago in Colorado. So they come to the Bell Center and they get what they deserve coming against us, for what they did to us in their last game there. So a really great response performance for the Canadians, coming back to play this team for a second time through. And, they definitely have been through a little bit of a slump that the Colorado Avalanche have, but, even still, I think it's still a huge win against a really solid team. Obviously, they've got 79 points in the season right now. They're 35, 8, and 9 after the loss today. So still a very solid performance for the Canadians against a really solid team. Whether they're in a slump or not does not matter to me. I feel like it's still, a very solid performance for them. They were able to do really well. I felt like they kind of dominated the entire game here. There were definitely some moments where, Colorado was pushing, making things close for sure, but the Canadians were definitely in control of this game from start to finish. A real solid 60-minute performance in my book here. Everybody kind of came to play and they did what they needed to do. So I'm really satisfied with how that works. And it all started a minute in, like pretty much 56 seconds into the game. Noah Dobson gets his 10th of the season off of a nice one-timer there from the left side. Hudson gets his 45th assist of the season. Still crazy every time I see, Hudson's numbers. He's just playing incredibly well right now in his sophomore season there. So he's able to find Dobson for that nice one-timer goal there. Sapkowski gets his 23rd assist on that one as well, feeding Hudson for that additional pass there. So nice all-around goal there, and really good. I think the more times that we can get, those opening minute goals, or set the tone early and score off of it, I think it's huge for the Canadians to get that under their belt and be like, we're settled into this game. We're feeling good, and we find a way to score early, put the team on their heels right away. So I like that effort all around. Obviously, Brock Nelson comes back, only a couple minutes later to tie the game here. Definitely one I feel like Dobesh might want to have back a little bit, which is kind of just he skated, into the zone and shot from the top of the circles and beat him pretty clean. Obviously, there's a little bit of a defensive screen going on there, but you'd like to have that one back a little bit. Obviously, he played incredibly well outside of that goal, in my opinion, but you would like to have that one back, I think, but. What are you going to do? Obviously, the Canadians did not suffer too heavily for it, but Nick Suzuki is able to come onto the power play and score his 17th goal of the season. Ivan Demidov just takes a shot on net from a Lane Hudson pass that goes onto the net. A good rebound comes out to Nick Suzuki. He's able to put that home for his 17th goal of the season on the power play. Demidov gets his 33rd assist of the season, and Lane Hudson his 46th assist of the season. So good to see all of those guys getting points as well. Obviously every time Demidov can get on the score sheet, get some points, it puts him closer to that, that Calder chase a little bit. So obviously it'll be very much up to the other whether or not Demidov actually comes away with that Calder trophy. But either way, it's good to see him getting points on the board, and he's only getting better as the season goes along, in my opinion. Obviously, there are off days and on days for him, I feel like, but I think he played very well in this one. So definitely happy with that performance, and obviously happy that we take that 2-1 lead there with a nice power play goal. And I like the fact that on the power play, the Canadians are deciding to just get the puck to the net a little bit more. I feel like throughout this entire game, even the Canadians were just a lot less reluctant to shoot the puck. I felt like we took a lot of chances just putting the goalies saves to the test there, and I feel like it worked out in a lot of ways, and this goal is definitely one of them. And then Nick Suzuki, not to be denied again, 2 minutes later-ish, on the penalty kill, finds himself in an opportunity to go in on the breakaway, gets that breakaway opportunity and scores. So good to see a Canadians player actually scoring on a breakaway, because I feel like that does not happen often enough for this team. But either way, he scores on the breakaway for his 18th goal of the season, his second of the game there. Oliver Kapanen gets his 12th assist of the season, and Mike Matheson his 22nd assist of the season. making the passes to make that play happen there. So, and that really broke this game open, in my opinion. We were able to really, take control of the game after that. I mean, we were pretty much in control the whole time, but going down two, especially when you're on the power play, is tough for the Avalanche to come back from. So I felt like we really were able to kind of cruise from that point onward, and I feel like that's a definitely big reason why we won this game. That was how the first period ended. And in the second period, Jake Evans apparently has got the hot hand now. He scores another goal here. It's his 7th of the season. He's just able to beat Blackwood to the puck there. He goes out to play it, which was kind of a risky decision. Obviously, a risky decision considering we scored on it. But I don't think he expected Jake Evans to be forechecking as hard as he was there. Jake Evans ends up beating Blackwood to the puck, or Wedgwood. I'm not sure. I think it was Wedgwood in the net, but either way, it beats the goaltender to the puck there, and then it ends up being a wide open net because the goaltender is sitting behind the net trying to get the puck, and it's an easy wraparound job for Jake Evans. And yeah, it's a 7th goal of the season there. A really good play there. Caden Gooley, who went down from injury earlier in the game and then gets up. He got his hand or elbow or something like that, hit by Josh Manson earlier in the game. Briefly left the game, came back onto the bench, makes a big hit on Arturi Lehkonen, former teammate there, and then gets the secondary assist on the Jake Evans goal. It's his 3rd assist of the season. And Bolduc gets another assist. It's his 11th assist of the season. So the big highlight there, obviously Jake Evans getting the goal, but also really good to see Caden Gooley. He goes down and he's able to come right back up, make an impact play, a nice hit, and then set Jake Evans up for a goal there, gets himself on the score sheet. So really awesome to see not only him getting back into the game in the first place, but then being able to immediately have an impact and giving us a 3-goal lead there. And that 3-goal lead didn't have to last for too long. Kirby Dach scores his 6th goal of the season, his first since I think November or October or something like that. It's been a long time coming for him. Obviously, he's been out from injury for a while, so good to see him finally get rewarded for his efforts when he's back in the lineup here. Just some good forecheck. He ends up getting the puck and just kind of throws it from behind the goal line, at Wedgwood, and I think it goes off a couple of bodies and ends up squeaking by, on the blocker side there. I think the blocker side. So just kind of a fluky goal in my opinion, but also again, it's not necessarily a high percentage shot by any means, but I like the idea of just getting the puck to the net, seeing what you can do. Like the worst thing that happens in that situation is it just goes off the pad, and then you keep fighting for it. Maybe you get a whistle and an in zone draw, and in this case obviously it goes and bounces off just the right way and it goes into the back of the net. So definitely a worthy effort there, and really good to see Kirby Dach getting points there. Zach Bolduc gets his 12th assist of the season as well on that one, so 2 assists from Bolduc tonight. So good to see him. Obviously, everybody who got points today, it's really awesome to see all of those guys getting on the score sheet, because it's especially when it's Kirby Dach, right, a guy who's been injured for quite a while, and Caden Gooley, who's been injured for a while. Jake Evans was out for a while, so good to see all of these guys coming back from injury in the first place and also making an immediate impact in the game like that. So really good there. Obviously, 2 unanswered goals follow that from Colorado. They seem to be coming back just a little bit. Both of them not really anything to write home about as far as what Dobesh or the defense could have done better there. Obviously, Colorado's a very good team. They really hem us in the zone a little bit. The second goal there for Colorado is just an onslaught of attack from them and just a rebound chance that Dobesh can't quite make the save on. And then the Ross Colton one was just really nice, positioning by Colton there is a little bit of unfortunate play that, we're not able to cover his stick a little bit better in the front of the net there, especially when, Hudson and Deneau were both in there in that area. But, again, you're playing the Colorado Avalanche, they're going to score some goals on you. So it is what it is. So not too hurt about that, especially considering, as I said before, Dobesh made a number of really big saves on, breakaway opportunities, lots of, point blank chances that definitely could have gone in. Dobesh was able to make the most of those and make big saves there. So He might not have gotten the best save percentage at the end of the day in this one, but he made some huge saves that definitely, allowed the Canadians to win this game here. So I'm not at all upset about his performance here. And hopefully, going forward, he can kind of keep this performance going, as well as, Montembeault continuing to play well. I think obviously there's been ups and downs for him, especially recently. People giving him a lot of flack for that game against Boston, but we'll have to see what happens there. And obviously, like talking about the goaltenders, we have to talk about the Habs firing their goalie coach and promoting the Laval Rocket goalie coach to the NHL. Kind of an interesting and somewhat unexpected move, in my opinion. I wasn't really expecting that to be the move that they make. But I mean, like looking at the numbers, they presented these on the broadcast and online and all that kind of stuff. The goaltender coach that got fired did not have a great track record going back to 2021 with their goaltenders, especially considering that part of that time was with Carey Price as well. So I'm not really sure. Why he even lasted as long as he did, considering those numbers. But it'll be interesting to see if a change in personnel in that department makes a big change for Montembeault and Dobesh there, and also how that affects Jacob Fowler, because obviously this does mean that he's going to be losing his goalie coach from the AHL. It'll be interesting to see who kind of fills that role in, and if it affects his development at all. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully he still is able to get some solid development and training in the minor leagues, because I think we can all agree that he's definitely the goaltender of the future for the Canadians as of right now, unless they make a big trade for somebody even better. But I feel like what we saw out of him in his like 10 games or so that he played in the NHL, he definitely seems like he's the guy who once he gets a little bit more developed, a little bit more games under his belt, I think he's going to be the guy moving forward, and we definitely need him to be as developed as possible. So it'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out. But coming back to this game, obviously, Dobish makes a bunch of great saves. I don't I don't really blame him for either of the goals that got scored here in the late second and early third period. There's just tough plays, and it's a really solid team that we're playing against. But then not to be denied, we're not gonna fall down too easy here. Alexandre Carrier scores his sixth goal of the season, so he continues his his legacy run of being an offensive defenseman for some reason. I feel like I mentioned it before, but I feel like Carrier is playing a much more offensive role than I would have expected, and maybe would have liked. I feel like maybe a little bit better if he sat back at home a little bit more than what he already does. But he gets the goal here, so I can't complain too much. It's a really nice play from Nick Suzuki and Kirby Dach as well. Some nice block shots come in, and Kirby Dach's block shot gets into the stick of Suzuki, and he goes on a 2-on-1 with Carrier. Carrier ends up scoring on a nice saucer pass from Suzuki. That's Suzuki's 44th assist of the season, and Kirby Dach gets his third assist of the season there. So a nice 2-point game for Kirby Dach as well. So again, great to see him getting points in the games there. And Suzuki obviously building up his points. I think he's got like 61 or 62 points on the season right now with those in hand. So really good to see him do that. Getting 60 points plus or whatever it is in 54 games is really impressive. It'd be interesting to see how he finishes this season. Does he get to 100 points? Even if he does only get to like 90 or whatever, he's still playing really well, and I think that he's really setting the pace, setting the tone for this Canadiens team. Is working out really well for us. So again, good to see him getting points there and making really positive impacts there. And then just for good measure, just to reach that seven goal milestone that Colorado reached against us not too long ago. Uri Slafkovsky gets his 20th goal of the season. Oliver Kapanen his 13th assist, and Ivan Demidov his 34th assist on a nice little play. They break into the zone here. Slafkovsky shoots one, goes wide, probably off a body or something like that. Goes back behind the net, and then Kapanen is able to put it right back, in by the net, and then Slafkovsky got the entire net to shoot at. He puts it right in and out of the goal there, and that's his 20th goal of the season. And I think that's a pretty of note in my opinion, just because if we remember like from past years or whatever, it would take Slafkovsky into that back half of the season, into game like 82 of the season or whatever, to get to that 20 goal milestone. I remember specifically 2 seasons ago, Slavkovsky got that 20th goal on game 82. And it was a big goal for him to get that, that pay bump and all that stuff. But it was really good to see, almost like 30 games previous to that right now, Slavkovsky is reaching that 20 goal milestone. So just another example of how Slavkovsky has elevated his game this season as compared to, 2 years ago as well as last year. And he's really, continued to show that he's a much improved player, and he's making a much greater impact on this team than he has been before. And also just that entire line that he's playing on, that second line, getting points in this one, just continuing to prove that line is really clicking as a group. Kapanen and Demidov both getting points here is always good to see. But yeah, Slavkovsky, the biggest thing there is just he's so much more improved this year. He's really starting to come into his own as, the player that we've known him to be and expected him to be when we drafted him back in 2022. So it's always kind of exciting when, he does something good, and we can kind of, revel in the fact that, he's really turning into the player that we always hoped he would be. So that's kind of how this one ends here. The Canadiens do a nice job of really just taking control of the game for the full 60 minutes. And I think we got a really earned 2 points in a regulation win there. But, as we look to the standings here, it doesn't change even a little bit. The Buffalo and Boston both won games today, so we all still sit at the exact same point, which brings me to, our next point here. We have our next game coming up on Saturday. The Canadiens are playing the Buffalo Sabres once again in Buffalo. So, obviously having lost our last 2 games in a row against them, this is a huge game for the Canadiens here. Obviously, it would have been nice to have won at least one of the other ones that we played against them going back to the last week or so. But, this is a big game. If the Canadiens can win this one against Buffalo, we can jump above them. And if Boston loses as well, we can reclaim that third in the Atlantic spot here and put ourselves back in a position to start, protecting that lead once again instead of having to come from behind a little bit. So this is a huge game, to say, the least. I don't think I have to hype this up anymore. The Canadiens absolutely need to find a way to get a win in Buffalo on Saturday. Otherwise, we're going to have a really tough time, climbing back up into the standings after giving Buffalo, 6 points over the last 2 weeks here. So that's pretty much all I have to say in this one. A really great win against a really solid team, but, our hard work is only just beginning here. This game against Buffalo is absolutely massive. The Canadiens need to find a way to lock in and get those 2 points. So thank you all so much for watching, and that is it for me. I will see you guys on Saturday after we get a big 2 points over the Buffalo Sabres.